Obviously, when you see mold on a wall, it's many spores. I mean, 250,000 spores can fit on the head of a pin, just to give you some perspective. So, hi, I'm Michael Rubino, indoor air quality expert. If you are considering mold remediation as part of your health journey, then you need to watch this video right now, because without these foundational steps, you're gonna spend money, not invest money, and you're probably not going to have the outcome you want. So, in order to have a successful remediation, it starts with having the right information. You need to know which wall to swing the hammer at. And you need to understand, is it that wall that's creating all these particles and toxins that are entering my body with every breath that I take? And that is not an easy question to answer, because it might have started in the wall, right? But over time, more and more spores were created by that source in the wall. It might have spread into other areas of the home that had some moisture intrusion or water intrusion. Crawl spaces, basements, attics, all come to mind, right? You might have different areas that have too much moisture in them, and opportunistically mold starts to grow because it's already growing inside of our homes, right? There's all these pieces of the puzzle that you really need to put together, and it is a puzzle. Just like when you go to the doctor and you're like, I'm not feeling well, right? They're gonna screen your body, they're gonna look for different biomarkers that are off, and then based upon those different things, they're gonna say, okay, your body is being stressed in these different ways. Here's the potential diagnoses you may have based upon your profile, right? And they start to do a little bit more targeted testing and dig deeper, right? That's why I created the dust test, right? The dust test is meant to be that screening tool that helps you dive deeper based upon the information that comes out of the dust test. So I would argue with you, if you haven't done the dust test or a test like it, you don't have a good baseline of what your house is like today. And then you don't have a good agreement based upon what the outcome you'd expect to see when the remediation's all done, right? So it's really important that you develop baselines of what you're breathing in versus what the outcome of what's expected at the time of the completion of this project, right? And so that's a really important thing. The next thing is doing the dust test first. It allows you to kind of reverse engineer the process. Let me give you an example. A lot of times what happens is if I suspect I have a mold issue as a homeowner, I look through the yellow pages, right, if that was still a thing. I'm Googling, I'm on Facebook, I'm talking to people. Hey, who has dealt with this issue before that's in my area that could service me, right? And you'll get some recommendations. Well, you pick up the phone, you give them a call. Maybe they've got great reviews, right? They come on over and they take a couple air samples. They tell you, yeah, you know, everything seems fine, might be a little elevated, nothing to worry about here, right? That leaves you with less answers than when you started with. Now, the more likely scenario is maybe they do find something, right? Hey, look, the air quality in the living room's not so great, right? But what they leave out is they leave out the inspection of the HVAC. They never went up into the attic, right? They barely checked the bathrooms. You've got some sink vanities and you've had some sink leaks, and they really didn't point that out as a potential issue, right? Now all of a sudden, you're left with, okay, I've got a problem in my living room. I'm ready to take the hammer and swing it at this wall. However, what about all the other issues that are issues, right? That if I don't address in this realm of remediation, what's gonna end up happening? Well, certainly the air I'm breathing off of that living room wall is gonna be better, but all the other things aren't part of the plan. I think starting with the dust, you can look at 36 different species and say, okay, if I've got Stachybotrys, for example, I know Stachybotrys takes 3 to 5 days to grow. I know if I have Stachybotrys in a house, I'm looking for a leak. I'm asking questions like, you ever have a roof leak? You ever have doors or windows leak? You ever have a plumbing leak that you're not, you know, that you're aware of, that you can make me aware of? 9 times out of 10, the homeowners know. They're like, oh yeah, we've had this leak. Okay, good. Tell me what happened with this leak. Well, it leaked. We called our insurance company and they said, looks fine. They came out and they just painted over it and we're good to go. Okay, well, that's a great spot to test, right? So having that information ahead of time is really helpful, but it's sometimes having the data in front of you by testing your dust can start to prompt all these individual questions that the inspector might not have asked you when they walked into your house, or that you might not have offered to the inspector when you said, when they asked you, hey, anything you can tell me about this home that might make my job easier. Samples taken in a home, they should be used to validate suspicions. But the idea is, by testing these concerns, I'm validating the concerns, and I'm understanding how bad is each concern and what type of mold is it. Don't you think that'd be valuable information to have when you're trying to create a plan to remediate your house? Thank you, I agree. And with that information, you know what else I could do? I could help people put together programs when they're on a budget. Can somebody raise your hand if you're on a budget? I'm on a budget. Are you not on a budget? Because if you don't have endless amounts of money to remediate your house, well then guess what? You really need to target what you're gonna remediate and what you're not. Now I know that anxiety is building up in you right now. You're like, but Michael, if I know I have mold, I need to remediate all of it or I'm never gonna feel better. Well, I don't agree with you there. And here's the reason why. I think we can use science to help us understand what's troubling you, right? And you might be the most sensitive person on the planet. Your husband or your kids might be the most, normal people on the planet where they are filtering this out and barely have any symptoms, right? The point is, everybody has a unique circumstance that they're dealing with. And do you know what we can do today? We can correlate the exact molds in your environment with the exact molds in your body. If I know you have certain species of mold in your house that produce mycophenolic acid, and I know that you have a buildup of mycophenolic acid, I'm probably gonna ask you to focus on those areas as target 1. And anything else that might be wrong in your house, right, I'm gonna list as target 2. And target 2 is stuff that if we can afford it, we'd like to have it. However, it's not nearly as important as target 1. And I think where we are with the science today, we can do that. We are seeing correlations between molds in people's houses and the toxin builds up in their bodies. Now, let's get into the remediation. Assuming we have all the data, we've got all the decisions, I know my HVAC's a problem, I know where the sources started from before they got into the HVAC, I've got a good remediation plan. Well, then it's time to find a remediation company. Now, this is like where we meet the wild, wild west, right? Because when I first got into this industry, it was after Hurricane Sandy had decimated the Northeast. This is like my foray into the industry, right? And the only reason that I even exist in this space is because I dared to ask, why are these people sick if their houses have already been remediated? The reality of the situation is we need to figure out where the sources are, okay? We need to, as best as possible, correlate the exact sources that are causing the exact problems in the human body through that correlation of testing. We need to reduce the amount of exposure by eliminating those sources. And remember, if you've ever watched any of my videos, we want to remove, not kill, not destroy, not fog, not this, not that. We want to, unfortunately, abrasively remove the mold from the structure. We want to understand what caused that mold to grow in the first place. For example, if I've got a leaking window, we need to fix the window that coincides with the remediation. Otherwise, it's just gonna happen again, right? It's gonna continue to leak and more mold's gonna grow. We wanna look at how do we prevent this in the future? There are things like non-toxic encapsulants that help encapsulate the structure, make it a little more resilient, right? We can use that in moisture-prone areas like attics, basements, crawl spaces, right? We want to look at, okay, if I've got water intrusion or moisture intrusion coming in from a basement, how are we going to waterproof this area, right? Are we going to slow down the vapor diffusion? Are we going to do dehumidification systems to basically control the amount of moisture as it naturally comes into the environment, right? All these things need to be part and parcel of the discussion and part of the program. The next thing that we do is we want to look at how do we reduce the overall exposure to all these things that have already been in our environment, right? I'll give you an example. You had a closet full of mold. All the clothes in the closet probably smell like mold. Now you've got particles, you've got toxins, and you've got MVOCs that might have absorbed into these clothes. It might be impossible to remediate those things, right? And so we have to look at the aftermath, knowing that the house is what the house is. How do we make the best decisions that improve our health without going so overboard that it costs us a fortune? Because it already costs a fortune if you haven't really guessed so far in this video. How do we make the best decisions so that we, within budgetary constraints, can make meaningful changes. And sometimes that's gonna be, let's throw out things that are really close to ground zero. Let's do our best to clean things that are further away from ground zero. Let's test, not guess. For like $50, we can get a tape test. We can tape test our fabric furniture that might have been 2 floors away, and we can see how impacted was that piece of furniture. And that'll tell us how likely we are to clean it when we vacuum and clean the furniture. And so I think from that perspective, we've got some tools that we can use to answer the questions. What do I need to really throw away? What do I have no hope in salvaging? And then what can I salvage? And so I think that is a really crucial point of remediation, and it's a total picture. And if you're just working with somebody who, does insurance work for a living, I don't think that they're gonna have this full doctor-like picture in mind. Now, step 3, it's all for nothing. You could hire the best of the best if you do not post-test. Now, what is post-testing? Post-testing is verifying that the source of remediation has been fully removed. And that is done through a combination of typically air and surface testing of the wall cavity, of the wall structure. The goal is to make sure we opened up far enough, we went high enough, we really got it all, right? There's nothing in the vicinity of that area that we might have missed. Now, mold can be 25 to 50 times smaller than what the eye can see when we're talking about one single spore, okay? Obviously, when you see mold on a wall, it's many spores. 250,000 spores can fit on the head of a pin, just to give you some perspective. So, you really want to make sure that you were thorough in the remediation efforts. And everybody's a human being. I don't care how much they care about you. Post-verification goes from that human intention to complete precision accuracy. So we want to make sure that, the care of remediating your house is also precise and accurate. If I just went through a remediation, you best believe I'd be doing a dust test probably once a year just to check up and make sure there's nothing out of the ordinary developing that I might need to be aware of, right? And so how we can use that information is great. People ask me all the time, should I be doing a dust test or an ERMI like every few months? No, that would be crazy. You will drive yourself nuts. You're gonna have natural fluctuations. So you'd wanna probably pick a time that you do it and stick to that same time every year. So if you've tested in October, good. Test next October, right? You can use this technology to see how your baselines are improving, but on an annual checkup base, just once a year is all you need to do, all right? So if you follow these steps, very important steps, pre-testing, proper remediation, post-testing, you are going to have the outcome you want. Now, really important, just like when I create a team for anything, you have to look at this as a business relationship. Are the people that I'm choosing to do business with, do they get the plot? Are they in agreement that we're trying to have, as a team-based approach, we're trying to do this where I can pre-test, where I can remediate, I can post-test, and everybody's on the same page of what the outcome is. I think that's really, really important because the way in which people can write their contracts, sometimes what's expected doesn't align with what you're trying to accomplish. And making sure that everything aligns is in your best interest, right? And so if you aren't using a company like Home Cleanse for whatever reason, you want to use other companies, I get it. Just make sure that everything aligns based upon everything I told you, and that's how you'll have success. If anything I shared resonated with you today, if you had value in anything that I said, please like, share, comment, subscribe, engage. There are so many people out there that are suffering and have no idea that poor air quality could be something that provides them the hope and the solution that they need. So please share this with anybody you think can benefit from this. That's why I'm here to create this. Thank you so much.